Okay, I didn't hear it say that I'm recording now, but I should be recording. I'm going to check that. Yes, I am. So nobody is here right now, so I'm just going to start the demo. The demo today is going to be what's on the bigger screen, and you're going to have to use a shoe as your prop, and I recommend that you draw from the shoe. I took a photo of it because I sketched it last night, and it's too hard for me to have a good lighting for the shoe and at the same time have lighting that's good enough for me to record. So, and if you're wondering why I have these big boxes here, it's there's like, this is full of rocks to keep the floor, my raised foundation floor, from vibrating because it keeps going out of focus because of the vibration. So I'm going to have the shoe, but I'm going to use this because I'm going with the lighting, with the shadow. So I took a photo of it and printed it out so that I could have consistent shadows. When you're drawing outside, and if it takes you a while, the sun is moving across your object, your shadows are going to change. So you might want to take that into consideration. So you can see that I just lightly sketched it. I put in some details of where I saw stitching. I tried to get sort of the twisting of the shoelaces and the shadows. I kind of marked some of the shadows so that when I'm drawing, I can have that on my paper. So the other thing I want to mention is that I used my 2B pencil for that, and I went really light sketching. And there's some areas where in just the sketching process that it got a little dark. So what I recommend doing, especially because this is a very light valued shoe, it's white. If your shoe is black, you might not have to worry about this, but because I have a light valued shoe, I'm going to take my kneadable eraser, and in some of these areas where I got a little darker with graphite, I'm just going to roll it, and you can see that it lightens it a little. And it just lightens it depending on how much pressure you put on it. So you can see how that lightened up. I'm not going to lighten it up anymore because I do want to see the line work, and I want you to maybe be able to see the line work. But that's on my screen. So you're going to start out, what you're going to need to have around is your willow charcoal. That's the one that is lightweight and uneven. This is the compressed charcoal. It's manufactured stick that is just perfectly round. And your chamois probably still looks like this. I'm going to go ahead and keep using this one so that I can use that one for pastels, for white chalk. So the other thing that you're going to need is your kneadable eraser and your other green eraser. Mine is in 2 pieces because I like to have a sharp edge for getting detail. I also like to have these to erase detail. So first thing I'm going to do is deal with the background. You can see this photo from the photo that I had a piece of white paper and a shoe on top of it so that I could get good shadows. But there was also a shadow coming across here. And it took me a minute to realize this, but the shadow is falling on the table behind the shoe, so it's not affecting the shoe at all. The shadow is behind it. So I'm going to put in my background. So on the photo, the shoe ends here, and that corner of the paper ends about there, at about the same, just to the right of where the end of the shoe ends. So if I take, it's the shoe, not the shadow, go up like this, and it's to the right a little bit, so it's probably about like here. And if you want to know about how you can get that angle, you can do this and go like that, and that gives you an idea, something like that. And then this one comes down a little, but actually this needs to be higher because see how this is above the shoe? So this needs to go up and off. I'm going to erase that one. I did this part, left this part off on purpose so that you could see a little bit of the sketching process. And since it's up here, it's going to be more like right here. Has to be a little bit higher because this is going to go down and it still has to be behind there. If it doesn't go that, it just goes like that. So I think this one is fine. And it's the same angle. You don't have to draw with rulers because if it's too straight, it starts to look a little artificial. This here. So maybe this does need to go up a little and down here. And I'm not going to worry too much about the line being dark up here because this is pretty dark up here. Maybe it's not so dark up there, so I might lighten that line a little. And I'll know that it's there. I can still see it. And then, so if I go up like this, that's about where this shadow starts and goes behind the shoe. It ends here. So let's see. Something like that. And I'm not going to worry about this back here. I'm just going to leave that probably dark. So to start out, what I like to do is have a piece of scratch paper. This is a piece of scratch paper. I could have done it on here, but I want to maybe be able to keep everything pretty clean. One of the things you want to know is that charcoal can be pretty dirty when you're working. You probably already know that from having done the grayscale. So first thing I'm going to do is take my compressed charcoal, it's the dark one, and put it down on a piece of paper. I'm trying to do it in your view, otherwise I would keep it away from the drawing. And I'm going to take my chamois, take it by the four corners, and I want to have a smooth surface. So it doesn't have any folds in the fabric because the folds will create scratches in the application. I'm going to pick up all of this charcoal. So all that charcoal is on my chamois now. And what I like to do when I'm going to do a charcoal drawing is because, you know, there's this idea of the fear of the white page. And so to get past that, I'm just going to put down some charcoal on my entire page. So this is kind of like toning my page. And I'm not pressing hard at all. I'm just sort of like dragging the rag across the page, and it's depositing some charcoal. And, you know, it interferes with my line work, but I have, I can look at it closely and still sort of see the shoe. So I'm going to start out by putting my light values in and getting darker and darker as I go along. So I think I'm going to try to start to develop some of just the basic forms of the shoe. And for that, I'm going to use my willow charcoal. That's this one. I have a fatter piece I'm going to use. So both of these are willow charcoal. Willow charcoal is a lot lighter. If you like hold them in your hand, you'll feel this has more density and substance, and this is very light because it's just dense. So I'm going to break it because I think it's easier to work with in small pieces and start putting in some of the values that I see sort of defining the shoe. And I'm not worried about putting dark where there shouldn't be too much dark because I'm going to be able to remove it very easily. That's the one thing about charcoal. I like charcoal because you can consider working with it an additive and subtractive process. So you add some, maybe you take some on, you add some more, and this is all really light value. You can use a clean chamois to do this. If you use that dirty chamois, you would probably be putting too much on there, so you might want to keep one side light. I use my fingers because it's convenient. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the edge of this part of the shoe because I'm just trying to keep definition. And this part isn't necessarily a line because it's stitches. So I'm just going to kind of tap it in there. And edge goes somewhere along here. And here we have a darker shadow that pretty much goes up into here. Now, and there's a shadow here. I'm not going to make it as dark as it is, but I'm just trying to define what's going on. There's some shadow here. And this is probably my darkest shadow, but I'm not going to make it really dark right now. So right now I'm just trying to sort of define some of the forms, some of the edges, and I can always lighten them up. So this is sort of this shoelace has a bit of a deeper value here. And shoelace, this is that little part of the shoelace. And the shoelace comes. There's a little piece right here that comes down into here. And it goes into that little lace bowl. And the larger part of the shoelace, so this is sort of the knotted part. And then it kind of comes around and folds. So something like this. And this kind of comes in here. It's a little wider. So this is the shoelace. around and find this edge of it. And this is kind of folded, so it has kind of a little tight. There. Shadow. I made that side of the lace a little big. So I'm going to take some of this. That's better. So there's more lace here, and it ends a little bit before there. What does that look like? So it's coming out of another part right here. And see a bit of that right there. And this lace comes down. Just and you see that little white bit of it. And this part is in shadow. There is some shadow. So this lace keeps coming and comes out here. And comes around. And this is the inside hole. And this is that fatter lace coming through. And a smaller one in the back. And actually, it kind of folds over and has some shadow here. Comes around. And I'm putting some value in the lace because it has value. And I'm not worried about smudging. Oh, I think might be blocking what I'm drawing. Sorry about that. And just trying to define some of the forms. And here this lace has some value. So shoelace down, and that goes up that way. So now I have to define the areas where it comes down to the little hole it goes into. So this kind of comes around. I'm not sure that's correct. I think this should be a little bit like that. And this one has been defined already. So this is going to have some value. And just by that much charcoal, it's plenty at this stage. I think that the whole exercise is about doing this slowly, starting by defining your forms and continuing to define them. So far nobody's with me, but I'll just keep going. And so this is the edge of the shoe. The edge of the shoe is very lightly defined. Barely see it up here, but you start to see it a little bit more here. And so here it starts to split off so that you can see a bit of the front of the shoe. But first I'm going to put in this shadow here, establish that edge. Further out there. This comes this way more. And we're going to smooth that a little. And I'm going to put a little bit of value in this other part, and then I'm going to take out the highlights with an eraser. Comes here. What happens is, that's the problem with the eraser. I'm trying to blow it off because you can't really scoot across your paper very well like this without smearing the charcoal. There is a product called Fixative. It's about $8 a can. And you can buy workable fixative, spray it on here while you're working. And what you have on the page at that point isn't going to move anymore after you spray the fixative. So I'm not going to use fixative because you guys don't have any. And if you use too much fixative, it kind of does put a little bit of tooth on the paper. So more shadows, but you know, I'm going to finish developing the rest of the image before I work on more shadows. I have this part in, but this part is darker. And you'll probably notice, like, I put it in, lighten it, put it in again, lighten it. And it's just sort of the process of additive and subtractive. It lets me work slowly, know what I'm doing, and I feel more comfortable in doing it. There's some shadows here. And crease there. Lots of creases here. Sort of a shadow there with creases. So let's see, I haven't dealt with the back part of the shoe yet. And in here, so this is part of the back of the shoe, right here, and here. And this is kind of a shadow here. And there's more shadow here. I think this kind of goes up. And I'm not worried about that really bright highlight because by the time I work a little bit more, it'll be gone. This kind of has an angle here. Need to find that. And this is pretty light though. And we have shadows. Things going on here. And there's some really sort of deep creases go here. the shoe. This is the brightest, one of the brightest highlights right here. And there's another one sort of underneath this shadow. And there's a little bit more right here, which is already pretty white right there. Add a little bit of shadow here. So you don't need much charcoal. You don't use much charcoal at all. This is inaccurate. So this is coming up. This bottom part shows, and you see more of just the lace coming out of there. And maybe just really the white part. And this is still the willow charcoal. The willow charcoal is very forgiving. You can put it on and take it off really easily. Over here, they still have these areas not very well defined. There's some shadow in here, but I want to separate it. Actually, this comes more like this. So, and here, this is kind of messy. I think I'm going to start defining that. And that's just the edge of the lace there. And then it goes into shadow. And over here, it's shadow. Has a little gap in the shadow because of the lace. It's from the shadows from the laces. And this shadow looks wrong. The shadow has more this way. And this is close. So I'm going to have those shadows a little more defined. They seem too dark right now, but I can make adjustments on that. And actually, they might not be too dark. So what else do I see? Some distress coming around here farther and here. And sit down. And there's shadow coming in here. And here's distress lines. And I think there's deeper shadow here. So There is also this big shadow, which I think will help if I put that in this one. I'm going to pop down. Notice how I use it on edge. You can get a smoother application on the page that way. When you kind of do this, you get like hard lines that might be more difficult to dissipate them. Your goal is to not really see line work, but to just have values defining the forms. And if you get into tight areas, that's what you have, the blending stick that you made. That's what it's for. I have a professionally made one and I have mine that I made. I used this one on pastel, so I'm probably just going to use this one. But that's what it's handy for. When you have little tight areas that your finger is too big for. So I can give this a definite edge if I want to. I think I need the definition of that little line to continue on. So take this. My hands are a little unsteady today. I can feel it. Hard to control. And see how I took out that white highlight? I'm gonna come back and pull it out again. And I think I have sort of multiple lines for my eraser, but I'm not really that concerned with it. I'm just want to capture the idea that I see here, where the shoe ends and then there's an edge, which I'm not really capturing. There's a highlight at the end of the shoe and then there's the edge. So that's the edge almost. And then there's a highlight. And then there's the heel of the shoe. It shows up in the highlight as highlight. And that's a little bit too intense. So I'm just going to kind of pat it a little bit for now. And I'm not happy with it. I'm going to use this eraser. Sometimes when you're not happy with an area, the best thing to do is to just kind of move on and come back to it later, which is kind of what I'm going to do here. Although I feel like it is getting a little bit better. I'm going to go turn off my dryer. It's really annoying with beeping. All right. so you can see we haven't put very much charcoal down at all. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that you have a charcoal pencil in your kit. I believe you have this Derwent charcoal pencil. You also have, well, you don't have this brand. You have, I think, a different brand. I'm not sure what brand because they had to put in whatever was available. You do have a white pencil and you have a black pencil. You probably don't want to use this until the very end. If you use it at home, you don't have to use it, but this is going to come in handy for detail. And you can see that the tip is somewhat dull, so you want to make sure that you sharpen it. And I'm just going to reach over here to get my sharpener. That's the trick to all pencils. You want to keep the sharp tip. You want to be in control. So that's a nice sharp tip. And I can get in and do details with that. So I might start working with the pencil on the shoelaces. So I feel like this has more darkness here and comes down and shows this fold of the fabric. There's a highlight that comes around there. So I think I'll just go around the highlight to define the form. I'm not sure how easily this will blend, or it blends pretty easily. No problem. And the outside of the lace is about here. There's a little bit of separate. Oh, that's bad when that happens. Has to resharpen. If that doesn't happen to you. But one of the things that does happen is if this pencil has been dropped, that means that maybe every time I sharpen it, that tip's going to come out. So you want to handle your pencils, charcoal pencil, very carefully. And the white pastel pencil, the same thing. Charcoal and pastel are softer than graphite, so sometimes when they drop, the core inside breaks, and as you sharpen it, it just keeps pulling out at the top. So it's something to be aware of. Okay, so I'm putting in some darker values just to define the forms. I'm going to soften them later because they're going to be too harsh. But I want to sort of define what's going on with the laces. Around here. Yeah. It's a little bit there. And it comes around here. And this kind of flips over. And you're seeing the edge of it here. And this is kind of the edge of the shoe. With the highlight in here. And so right now, I'm doing a little bit of line work, but I'm going to eliminate this line work before the drawing is totally done. Because you want to define your forms using value primarily. And this has a shadow here. See that white line? That's graphite embossment. So you don't want to push too hard with your pencil because you emboss the paper and then it always shows up. And there's some shadow over here. From the shoe, you can see sort of a little bit of shadow there. And then the shadow disappears, but this is darker. And actually, I think that's supposed to be here, I'm missing that. No, that's there. So this is down further. This shadow comes in here. Around this lace. This. And there's a shadow comes here. This is almost all blends together here. You can see a bit of highlight right there. And these seem a little. So one of the things that you want to do is like kind of stop, look at it, and see what's going on. It's 1:52, so I'm going to keep going for another 8 minutes, and maybe I'll post a finished drawing. But I'm still going to work on it, recording. So I need to define the laces better in this area. So I'm going to define these because this shadow here is darker. That bit there. And this stuff is coming all the way to this. And there's light spot there a little bit, but maybe not quite so light. Maybe this is a little darker here. Bye. That's my son. All right, so that is not good. That needs this lace to be softened and for this form to not be so clunky. There's some darkness here. And this is around. So I'm gonna do a little bit of softening in some of the areas. So this is my lace and comes around, goes back in there. And this is that other piece of the lace coming down, and you have that definite little end of the lace thing, which is not that white, and it's not white at all, but I'm trying to define the form of it, so it's kind of like that right there. And this has some more. Highlight is actually on this end. Comes here. And from here, this little bit of darkness. In that place. That comes down and forms this little part of the lace. That part is there. Should be. So this part of the lace comes up, comes over here. No, that's the shoe. What happens? Oh, this is this lace coming through here. So that's this lace coming through here. And that's the back part of the shoe. It's not really highlighted, so and I'm going to put in that little dark edge a little bit more here. And that's just kind of like that. And this comes around. The laces are pretty dark in value. And this doesn't have a highlight in there really. Well, it does have a highlight on here. So capture that and put in the shadow. This darkness goes all the way up into here. There's a bit of a highlight here, but I'm just going to use my kneadable eraser to take that out. So here. And you can see how well that kneadable eraser works on charcoal. I hope I haven't had my head in the view too often. And this shadow is a little bit darker too. So I haven't even used my compressed charcoal. Compressed charcoal is much more difficult to get off your page, and that's basically what I'm dealing with in the pencil, is the compressed charcoal. And so it gives me more control. You might be using your compressed charcoal more if you're drawing a really dark shoe. And this little just seems to have some shadow. I might use this to put down some compressed charcoal. That's low. And pick a little bit up with this corner to do. I forgot where I was looking. So, oh, here. To bring this around to get sort of a little edge. Without really using line work. So I'm going to pick some more of that up. I'm not going to mess with that part anymore. I think that this part on the exterior now needs some work. And this comes up here. That one. Now I lost that kind of bit of shadow here. My willow will be better for that. The white doesn't go in that far. So I'm going to take that down, but there is some white here. And a little bit here. And I think if I now just kind of blend some of this charcoal. We can kind of have some highlights, but those highlights are going to pop more by having a definition behind them. And I almost lose my edge there, but it's almost like I have a little bit of reflected light here. So if we make that a little lighter, and come back in and put a little bit of this in here to help define the edge of the shoe. Not going too far. So I can see the edge of the shoe. I think that, probably here I would work out so that, well, because it might have a little bit of reflected light. So I think it might be 207. I went a little bit over. So basically what I would do for the background, I'm going to quickly do some background before I end the video. But I think I do have enough here. So this is the paper edge. And then this is kind of the shadow edge. So this is going to be not as dark as the rest of the background. I didn't mean to do that. To be more sort of piece charcoal. And that's that shadow. And soften this charcoal. I don't want that line. I'm going to get rid of that line. And just by breaking it up and get rid of enough of it. And So this is where the shadow is. And then this is where the piece of paper is, and the piece of paper, behind the piece of paper, it's darker. So go ahead and do that to define those edges. And just and since everything is so softly blended, if I were to leave the background like this, I think that too much emphasis goes on the background. So I am going to diffuse this charcoal so that it's just a background. The sort of the other issue that I have with this drawing right now, in comparison to this background, maybe some of these need to be, I need a few darker values here, probably in this shadow. So I'm going to use my compressed charcoal, maybe just to get this shadow a little darker. But I think I'm going to end the video now so it won't go too long. Everybody gets the idea of what you need to do for your formal drawing for this module. I think this is due for you on Saturday. Remember that this course goes really fast, the 8 weeks, and you want to try to keep up. If you have questions or you want to show me what you're doing and get some advice on it, you know, pop into my office hours and show me what you're doing. I can give you some advice. I'm still not happy with this part, but drawing takes, I'm very slow, you might have noticed. So this is way too highlighted. So even that looks better, but I still need more definition. This needs some more darkness, but I would not use, I would use my will. I keep saying I'm going to turn it off. I will. I haven't yet. I would probably put in a little bit more of the distress marks too. And find some of these edges again. And the stitching. These are wrong. A little bit of blending. And so you can see that that's how you get around your shoe. This needs a little more touch-up work. This has a really sharp edge, the shadows. I would want to sharpen those edges, maybe some of these too. And just go in and sort of do a little bit of touch-up and I will be done. I'm not happy with this part. This part looks kind of awkward still, but and this should be in shadow too. But I'm going to end the video now. You can join me in my office hours. I'm doing my office hours right now. So I am going to end the video though because they can be too long. And I'm still posting these on YouTube. And sometimes it's good to use your charcoal pencil to get sort of these like distress lines, the shoe. This is a really old shoe, and I think that's what this one needs here, is more definition. I think this shadow, probably more like that. There's no highlights here. That's sort of what I'm missing now. All these sort of little nuances of stress on the fabric, on the leather. So, right in the video.